Hi, thanks for joining me today. We're going to focus a little bit in this video on some movements for our joints. So we know when we are in the saddle, we need to have mobility in the joints to create that soft connection with our horses. And even for those of you who are not riders, having mobility in the joints, you can get really stiff in the joints. And when we do focus on some mobility like we're going to do for the joints, we have to create stability in the rest of the body so those joints can move. So we're going to be doing a balance of things to create strength and then that mobility and flexibility today. So we're going to start seated. If you have something to sit up on, like a blanket or folded up towel, that would be helpful. So just something to lift the hips up a little higher to have a nice neutral position for the spine. So find that nice length in your spine first. Think of the collarbones being nice and wide. Think of the sit bones reaching down, crown of the head lengthening up. So just finding that nice foundation in your seated posture. And then we're going to start with just a little bit of movement for the head and the neck. So imagining that you're going to draw a little circle with your nose. So you're just going to start to make a little circle with the nose. You can close the eyes if that helps you kind of visualize that circle a little bit better. But start a little small. And then if that feels comfortable, you can make the circle a little bit bigger. But don't make it so big that you're, crunching the back of the neck or anything like that. Just think of soft, easy, gentle circles here. But we still need to keep our strength and stability in our spine. So still keeping that nice alignment. And then gently take the circle, go the other direction, and maybe start a little smaller as you circle the second way. And just notice if there's any place that you feel like you get a little stuck or the circle gets a flat side, or just notice just sensations that you feel. So one more circle around with the nose and then gently come back to center. If you had the eyes closed, gently let the eyes open. So slide the hands right out to the ends of the knees, arms a little straight to start with. And then we're just going to start to circle the ribs here. So think of sending the heart forward and then rounding the spine back. So just again, same thing as with our first little exercise, little movement. Find a size of this movement, the circle that feels good for you. So it might start a little small, might get a little bigger, but just notice sensation, notice what's moving. Might just be through the ribs, you might get a little movement in the shoulders, just notice how that feels. Make sure you're breathing. Again, with all of these movements, steady flow with your breath. In and out of the nose. And then notice which direction you are circling. Take a little pause and then circle the other direction. And as you go the other way, notice how that feels. Any difference in sensation or your movement or your breath. And then once again, come back to neutral. Find that nice length right up through the crown of the head. Now bring the fingertips right to the tops of the shoulders, elbows drawing down. And then as we inhale, nice length in the spine. As you exhale, you're going to round the spine forward. Bring the elbows towards each other as if they are going to touch. They may touch, they may not. And then inhale, bring the elbows forward, up, back, and around. And then as you exhale again, round the spine a little forward, send the elbows towards each other. And then as you inhale, send the elbows forward, up, back, and around. Maybe lift the heart and the sternum. Get a little extension through the front of the body. So exhaling and rounding down and around. And inhale, coming all the way back, opening up through the chest. Again, let's do that a couple more times. Exhaling and inhaling. Good. Once more. And this time as you come up, just let the arms again release down by your side. Take a breath. Notice how you feel. Inhaling and exhaling. And then very gently, let's come off of whatever we're seated on. We're going to come to all fours, come to table pose. So spreading the fingers wide, wrists below the shoulders, knees below the hips. Find that nice neutral spine. Think of drawing the lowest ribs towards the hips. The gaze is down towards the hands, but we're not letting the head collapse. So think of crown of the head lengthening forward, tip of the tailbone reaching back. So we're going to start with a little movement here for the wrists, or a little rotation for the wrist. So take the left hand, begin to rotate the fingers. Maybe they just go out to the side. Maybe you can rotate the hands so the fingertips point back towards the knees. That does not work for you. Only go as far as is comfortable. But then we're going to do this little movement. Think of making a circle over that wrist. So we're kind of letting the whole body move. We're not just circling that arm there, but just get a little movement there in that wrist. It's really getting a good stretch for the forearm, and then taking the circle the other direction. Make sure you're breathing, still keeping in that neutral position in the spine. So again, we're creating some mobility in one area while we create to keep stability in another area. And then gently bring that left hand back, fingertips point forward, and now rotate the right fingertips out to the side and as far back around as they go. This might be different, and again, start that circular movement. This might be different if this is your dominant arm. It is for me, so this is a little tighter, muscles a little tighter in that forearm and arm because it's my one I do everything with, or the dominant activities with. And then take that circle, go the other direction. Make sure you're breathing, inhaling and exhaling. And then again, coming back to center, bring that right hand, turning those fingertips back forward, wrists under shoulders. Now bring awareness to the hips. We've already started to get a little movement there, but now thinking of circling the hips over the knees. So start with the circle a little small, and then gradually begin to make the circle a little bigger. And again, do this as much as it feels good for you. So maybe you're sending your hips towards your hands and then sending your hips towards your heels as you circle. Make sure you're breathing. And then very gently, again, take the circle the other direction. Start a little small as you start that movement. And then let that circle get a little bigger. Again, if it feels better to stay small, then just stay small with that circle. Inhaling and exhaling. And then once again, come back to center, readjust the knees if they've shifted out from underneath the hips. And now we'll take that circular movement to the ribs. So let the elbows bend, let the chest and the chin dip a little bit down towards the mat as you circle the ribs. Again, steady flow with your breath. Inhale and exhale. And then again, notice the direction you're circling, and then pause and take the circle the opposite way. Inhale and exhale. One more big circle around here, and then come back again to that neutral table pose. Now bring your big toes together, bring your knees towards the outside edges of the mat, hands towards the outside edges. Send your hips back towards your heels. Let the forehead come down towards the mat. If it doesn't come all the way to the mat, you can stack up the hands and let your head rest on your hands, or you can even use that cushion or blanket that you had earlier. And then just do a little gentle roll of the head side to side. So we get a little movement here, again, in the neck. So let the head be heavy. Gently roll the head one direction, the other direction. Again, make sure you're breathing. And then letting the head come back to center. If you have the head resting on the hands, go ahead and bring your arms back out. And then we're going to do this big circular movement from the hips. So we're going to start to shift the hips and the torso a little over to the left. You're going to come up to the left, Come back up through that wide knee table pose, shift the hips and the torso over to the right, come back to that child pose. So great big circle here with the whole body. Inhaling and exhaling. Good. So another big circle around here. The next time your hips come all the way back to the heels, pause for a moment. And now start to shift your hips and your torso over to the right and take that circle the opposite direction. So again, notice the same thing, as we've checked in a couple times. Notice if there's a place that, your body wants to skip through a little faster, or you lose that little curve, you have a little flat side anywhere. Just notice what you notice. Go one more time around, and then the next time again that you come back with the hips to the heels, pause there for a breath. Inhale and exhale, and then pressing into the hands. Inhale, come up to your table pose. Bring the knees again underneath the hips and the wrist under the shoulders. Then we're going to do a little bit of movement for the hip. So let's take the right knee, actually I'll turn the other direction so you can see from the side. So take the right knee, picking the right leg up off the mat. We're going to start to make a circle with this right knee. So thinking here, this is a great opportunity to really engage the core muscles so that we keep stability in the rest of the body, and just isolating this movement to that hip socket. So and make that circle as big as is comfortable for you, and as big as you can keep that core engaged and keep that, because we don't want to, get this going. We want to keep that alignment in the spine, and then take your circle the other direction. Make sure you're breathing. Sometimes we concentrate so hard on something we forget to breathe. And then let that right leg come back down. And just to take the pressure off the wrist for a moment, fold back to your child pose. Maybe even turn the wrist up or do a little circle here with the wrist. Give them a little break. And then bring the palms back to the mat. Inhale, come up to your table pose, and we'll do that same thing on the left side. So just lift the left knee up off the mat and then start to circle that left leg. So again, think of that core engagement. So we're keeping that nice alignment in the rest of the body. We're breathing. And again, just like with the hands and the arms, you might notice that one leg moves a little easier than the other. We usually have a dominant leg, so notice if that is the case for you, if one moves a little bit easier, and then take that circle the opposite direction. Good. Another breath, another big circle, and then let that left leg release down. Again, this time just do from your table pose, just do a little circle of those wrists one at a time. Opposite direction. Little release there. Now bring the hands in front of the shoulders, press into the fingertips, base of the knuckles, curl the toes under, send your sit bones up and back. Come to downward facing dog, knees bent. Stay on the toes, knees bent. And then let's start with the right foot, keeping that ball of the foot on the mat, just kind of rolling that, circling that ankle a little bit. You can kind of roll through the ball of the foot into the toes, circle that ankle a little bit, and then switch to the left leg. So circle it a couple times one direction, the other direction. And then coming back to that downward facing dog, bent knees or legs straight, your option. Now we're going to do the same thing we did from that table pose. You're going to lift that right foot up off the mat, and then you're going to circle that right knee, but keep that core engaged. Just a couple circles each direction so we don't have too much time on our wrist. Circle the other direction. And then if this is too much for your wrist, you can always repeat this from table pose and then switch to the left side. Circle that left knee. A couple times one direction, the other direction. And then gently release that left leg back down. Another breath in your downward facing dog. And then release the knees down to the mat and curl the toes. Let the hands release back beside the feet, palms to the mat if that feels comfortable. If not, just let your head again rest on your hands or your head on your blanket or cushion. Inhale and exhale. And then very gently pressing into the feet, bring the hands beside the knees, just gently bring yourself up to a seated position. You can come onto the heels or sit cross-legged, whatever feels comfortable for you. So thank you for joining me today. Again, just a little movement for the joints. We did a little for the neck and the shoulders and the wrist and the knees and the hips and the ankles. So a lot of those places where we need that flexibility in the saddle, we need those flexible ankles to absorb the motion when our feet are in the stirrups. We need that same thing, flexible hips to follow the motion of the horse in the saddle. And then of course that flexibility and stability of the elbows and the wrists for our contact with the reins and the horse's mouth. So I hope that you enjoyed that. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this and subscribe to my channel. Check out the information about my website and other classes that I teach in the information section below. And I hope to see you sometime soon in the saddle or on the mat. Thanks. Bye-bye.